Hello, welcome to the Wise Way to Success podcast. And I am here today with a very special guest. She has actually made history. Her name is Jennifer Hosten, and she won Miss World 1970 and made history for everybody. Is that right, Jennifer?
Well, I think I was the first woman of color to win this world.
So how is that to be the first woman of color in 1970 to be crowned Miss World 1970? How does that feel?
Well, it was a tremendous experience. It was a significant uh, event in my life, but as you can see, it doesn't define me. So I went on to do other things. But it occurred at a time when history was in the making. The women's movement and a number of other things, number of other events occurred at the same time, which made my win that much more significant.
Well, for those who are not familiar with your story, I want to touch on other things for sure. Today, we want to talk about self-esteem, mindset. But for those who are not familiar with your story, which they made a movie about and you wrote a book about, can you just share a little bit about your story, about your book, Miss World 1970?
Well, in 1970, I was the first representative for the island of Grenada to attend the Miss World contest in London, England. And it was one of the biggest shows ever on television. I think over 100 million viewers. And it also was the year when the women's liberation movement decided to demonstrate. So they used the contest as the platform to get their messages across. They threw flower bombs on the stage. And if you recall the well-known comedian Bob Hope, his entertainment, his gig was interrupted on the stage, and this was the beginning of the women's movement in the United Kingdom. It also was at the height of the anti-apartheid movement, and South Africa, which had not sent a representative of color previously, sent two representatives that year. So it was a year full of controversy.
And you were right in the middle of all that controversy, right in the middle. So they made a movie called Misbehaviour based on your story. Is that right?
But I must point out, it wasn't me misbehaving. I
Right.
think I think the name stems from the women's movement and
Right.
what we did on that occasion. Yes.
And how does it feel all these years later? The movie just came out in 2020 last year. How does it feel after all these years later that the story is still relevant?
Well, it's really it's surreal, and in fact, the movie has been in the making, was in the making for 10 years. They had to write the script and do the research, and then finally get the funding. But it all occurred at a time when it was so apropos and so relevant because it talks about women's rights and also about the Black Lives Movement. Both events at the same time, and of course, you know what happened last year.
Of course.
So the movie is extremely relevant and it's told in a very entertaining and it's of course it's historic, entertaining and meaningful. The story itself is quite meaningful and uplifting. So I do recommend the movie.
For sure. It's about, equality, empowerment. It's themes that are timeless. If you think about it, they're timeless. And it's interesting because we talk about, the Black Lives movement, the Black Lives Matter that happened, the whole thing with George Floyd last year. And it's interesting how the 1970 we had these issues, and it was such a big deal for a black woman to win. Miss World 1970, and then we're in 2020, and we still see these themes of racism that people are not even, I don't even think some people are aware of the extent of racism that's out there, even after all these years. So the story is very relevant, and it comes down to Black Lives Matter, equality, human rights, just wanting fairness for everybody.
That's right. That's right. It's so interesting, because 50 years ago, my story was a great, something quite relevant.
Mhm.
And to think that 50 years on, it still has relevance.
It's fascinating. So I want to talk to you. You were a licensed psychotherapist, and you obviously, needed to have, I would imagine, um, some some self-esteem and some worthy feelings to be able to go ahead and do what you did 50 years ago. You must have felt somewhat good about yourself to with all this diversity to still say, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to, enter the Miss World 1970, right?
Well, I think I recognized an opportunity. And this actually is what I say in my book, is that throughout my life, I have been challenged and have made the decision to take advantage of opportunities after studying and recognizing that they were worth taking. And I say that you never know where these opportunities take you. It does mean that you may have to take a calculated risk, but that's what life is about.
Jennifer, I think that this is so inspiring for people. And I love what you're saying about taking a risk and seeing an opportunity. I want to talk now with you about the people who self sabotage, who do not take the opportunity, who do not take the risk out of fear, probably, or insecurities. What would you say to those people who have what I would like to call, or we could call, self limiting beliefs or self sabotaging tendencies?
Well, throughout my life, and this is what I've often shared, is it's very important to realize that we ourselves can change. We ourselves can change things. And today is a new day. Today is a new day and could be the beginning of a new chapter in one's life. That it's never too late to change. In fact, I have reinvented myself throughout my life. I I have strong faith. It's something I don't always talk about, but it's really fundamental to my belief in myself. And I think that most people need to have a connection, to have what they often have described as a heart song, an essence, and a purpose in life. And I think if you could look and realize that each of us has a different purpose. Every single one of us have gifts that we alone have to recognize. Once we can recognize those gifts, then we can be open to the opportunities that face us in life. And when we take advantage of some of the opportunities, um, who knows where they'll take us.
Well, maybe they'll take them to Miss 1970, but, well, Miss or Mr. 2021, maybe this time. Maybe we'll take them to something that they thought they couldn't do or thought was possible, right? Isn't that interesting? Because you never know.
That's right. And the other thing is, we should never be defined by any one success or any one failure. We can. We have the ability to move on by preparing ourselves, recognizing that having a purpose, I think a purpose beyond ourselves is really powerful. But
Um,
remembering we each have a, a gift or a set of gifts that we alone have. And I think that's where we need to start. And always be yourself. I believe I believe at the heart of everything, I have tried to be myself. I might have had goals and so on, but I've always been a person that's down to earth. I never want to lose sight of the importance of being myself and to set high standards and to set high goals. So those three things, being yourself, setting high goals, and being sure that the standards we maintain for ourselves are standards that people can look up to, and I and my family would want to recognize, So that has been basically my philosophy.
Very
I
nice.
hope I hope it's useful for others.
I think it's great. I call the people who join the show, I call them the wise mentors. They are people that could offer advice and wisdom to people, and I think that's what you're doing right now. Is you're sharing some great insight and great wisdom for people. Hopefully, that they'll use it and they'll take these words and these steps that you're providing and action with them. Use action. That's how you get things to happen. Because ultimately, you can have a goal, you can have you can have a plan, but if you don't take action, then there's what goes. That's the issue here.
And one of the things I was proudest of in winning this world and being the first woman of color to win this world was that I knew that it would mean so much to little girls in the Caribbean and around the world who would look up to me. So I did have to set a high standard for myself, and so that they would be proud of the representation. And in the final analysis, to let them see that anyone can achieve some of these things. Anyone is capable of achieving success in whatever field you decide is important to you.
So I have just one more question, concept that I think people struggle with is how do you change a negative mindset? How do you get out of the mindset where you said everybody has, this gift? But how do you help somebody who says I have nothing to offer? I have no gifts.
Well, the first thing is we have to recognize that we do have gifts. And we have to be grateful for little things. So if you get up every morning and you can say, I'm grateful for such and such a thing, I'm grateful for health, I'm grateful for the day, and I'm grateful for the things I'm going to do today. Because as I said before, every day is a new day. And if we can look at things that way, we can overcome whatever has not been successful for us in the past by being open, essentially being open to change and being open to look ahead positively.
Amazing. You're inspirational, and I hope people really do take what you say to heart. Jennifer, how do people find your book? How do they watch this movie that is incredibly inspiring? Could you give us some of your contact information?
Yes, well, my book, Miss World, How I Entered a Pageant and Wound Up Making History, is available on Amazon. And the movie as well. It's actually it's the audible version is available too. And what's interesting is that the actress who played my part, Mabaka Raw, also did the introduction to the book
Wow.
in her own voice. And she did a fantastic job of portraying me in the movie. You can see Misbehaviour online. It's also available, I think it's Amazon Prime. I think you can get it from Google Movies as well. And there is a DVD that's out. So if you look it up, you just look for Misbehaviour, IOUR. It's the British spelling. It's a fabulous movie, and it's made by the producer was a woman, the director is a woman, and the writer, the screenwriters were all women. So it tells the story It tells the story of this large beauty contest from a different point of view. It's got different views of feminism, and it really is something worthwhile. So I do recommend it.
Well, Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join the Wise Way to Success podcast. Here on this show, I am on a mission to help people live their best life without anxiety, fear, stress, phobias. If you feel you need extra support, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the Wise mentors. We are here to help you live your best life. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You're a pleasure. I highly recommend people checking out the book, the movie. The book is um, Miss World 1970, and the full title is Miss World 1970: How I Entered a Pageant and Wound Up Making History. And that you sure did, Jennifer. That you definitely did. So check out the book, check out the movie, and thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.